Thank you, Catherine, and a very warm welcome to everyone again. My name is Shridhar Prabhuraman. On behalf of Need20 Technologies, I'll be making a presentation today on the digital transformation for underwater domain awareness, the whole holistic view of that. Now, before we get into digital transformation, Arnab sir very succinctly brought out what underwater domain awareness aspect is. And if you could remember the cube that he presented, the digital transformation effort here essentially is to transform. So in the top of the cube, we have the aspect of acoustic capacity and capability building, which is essentially understanding what is happening underwater in terms of both the acoustic science as well as how we can monitor it, how we can have any risk assessment, how we can perform predictive analysis, and so on and so forth. So digital transformation is one of the way for data-driven decision making. It's a framework that we are trying to build on top of that, which essentially focuses on leveraging cutting-edge technologies like AI, IoT, cloud computing, big data analytics, and so on, in order to enhance our existing maritime security, environmental conservation efforts, and sustainable economic activities. And more so focusing on, like, in this particular context of the webinar, given both Philippines and India have a very strong coastal community, the presentation is kind of leaning towards that a bit. Now, the goal is, again, just to reiterate, that we only use digital tools to create a data-driven decision framework. What we mean by that is that tools that allows stakeholders involving maritime agencies, governments, coastal communities, researchers. So one particular tool which analyzes and brings together all the information into a single platform that can then be used to drive insights and drive policies. Now, why does underwater domain actually need a digital transformation to begin with? So there are four different points for that. One is that the underwater domain is a very data deficient and it's a very poorly monitored at this point of time. It's not just the aspect of one or two countries, it's essentially across the globe. As compared to other fields, underwater domain is something that we are lacking behind in terms of data and monitoring. And there are a lot of challenges that undergo in that. It's not as simple as saying that we are lagging behind in it. There are a lot of challenges that we have to face to actually overcome these problems. I will talk about that a bit. The second thing is that a lot of like more than a large part of the globe also consists of coastal communities, and these coastal communities depend on fisheries, aquaculture, and ecotourism, and all those are the main bread and butter for all of these communities. There is definitely a rise in maritime threats and environmental challenges, and all of this requires real-time monitoring. We need to understand that as the technology keeps improving, it's not just constructive but also destructive technology that keeps booming. So we have to be in pace with the destructive technology as well. By that, what I mean is that any kind of illegal fishing or any kind of all the illegal operations that happen across the maritime world, we need to have constructive technologies that can tackle around that. Most of the traditional methods that we use above seawater are more or less inefficient when we talk about underwater, because again, there are scientific aspects about it, which Arnab sir also explained, the tropical characteristics of the water, also simple aspects like most of our technologies revolve around light and radio signals, and those signals do not propagate underwater well. Sound is the only means of communication in the water underwater. So given those kind of limitations, traditional methods definitely are inefficient, and we need to work on those. And currently, with the advent of AI and the existing technologies that we have, cloud computing, it become much and more and more easy and feasible for us to go through it. And therefore, I would like to summarize by saying that there are three pillars of digital transformation that we want to look at when we say digital transformation. The framework that we are deriving essentially should allow for real-time monitoring, should allow for predictive analysis, and should allow for risk assessment. So let's go by one of each of those. Like, what do we really mean by the aspect when I say that it's data deficient and poorly monitored? Now, so we know that water absorbs and scatters light and radio signals. So any kind of conventional monitoring, satellite radars, they are extremely ineffective when we talk about deep underwater areas. Sonar is the only technology that we use, or anything sound related is the only technology that we use that allow us for capturing insights and information. Of course, there are some changes to that. I mean, we can have AUVs that can go travel deep underwater and capture images. But broadly, from the perspective of economically viable option for capturing data underwater, sonar is the only technology that we can have. Now, even though we have know that sonar or any kind of sensor network is the one option for us to go about it. There is a lack of persistent sensor networks, which means that we have a very limited real-time data on any kind of ocean information, ocean temperature, salinity, noise level, biodiversity changes. How many of us actually know that what is the sediment composition of our waters, or even the coastal waters for that matter? Because the type of sediment has a huge impact on a lot of things. Like the type of sediment determines whether dredging can be performed or not, can we place oil rigs in that place or not. The type of sediment also determines that how the sound travels. So even indirectly, the performance of the sonar or the distribution of noise, all of that also depends on the type of sediment. But at this point of day and age, it's very difficult for us. I mean, again, it's challenging. I'm not saying that it's something that we have not done. There are challenges that go around it, but yes, it is a matter of fact that we do not understand a lot of environmental aspects that are there underwater. And again, that brings me to the third point, that deploying and monitoring any kind of deep sea environment is technically challenging and as well as expensive. Like we can sit and we can talk about how we need to monitor how we can collect the data and how we need to perform monitoring and so on. But it's also something that we have to take into account, that it is extremely expensive for us to perform such kind of operation. It is not economically viable for a lot of countries to be able to deploy sensor networks across the ocean to perform monitoring and data collection. And any kind of data collection methods that we have currently are intermittent in nature. So what I mean by that is that we have ocean buoys, we have manually deployed sensors and periodic ship-based surveys that we perform. All of the data that we collect is intermittent, obviously, because we cannot have a continuous data collection process at this point. And this is where to tackle this again, I'm trying to link this to what Arnab sir mentioned about modeling and simulation based approach. What this essentially means that because of the economic viability, because of the fact that it's not really possible, because of all the challenges that we have deep underwater, it's not entirely possible for us to have a traditional approach to solve these problems where we deploy sensors and we monitor and gather data. We need a monitoring and simulation based approach where we use neural network or we use any kind of AI algorithms to perform predictions rather than estimations. So there is a subtle difference between that. Now, as we move forward, I'll show some of the tools that we have developed that make use of such AI technologies. If I without any kind of so when I say continuous data, the importance of continuous data is that without any kind of real-time data, we have a lot of struggle. We cannot assess underwater noise pollution from industrial activities or shipping. We cannot monitor illegal activities such as unregulated fishing and smuggling. So because there is a lot lack of data, so as Arnab sir mentioned, we did go to Maharashtra and Gujarat's coast, and again, illegal activities, unregulated fishing has been something that they also flagged to us. But then there's also a matter of fact that without any kind of data to support the claims, policies cannot be drafted. So again, we need information, we need data to go about anything that we're doing. Even if we have some kind of an incident, like for example, if there are oil spill that's happening, or there's a coral reef degradation, or there is a fish stock depletion, how do we go and tell the world that there is something that is happening? We need again data. We need some kind of a predictive mechanism that tells that if an oil spillage is happening in a particular region, what kind of impact does it have across the broader ecosystem? Like in terms of the collision, ship collisions, in terms of what are the marine habitat in the region that will get affected, and so on and so forth. So yes, I just put articles for each of the points that I'm making. So as you can see, unregulated fishing in Indian Ocean is something that is still a huge aspect. The second point that we spoke about is the coastal communities, depending on the fisheries and aquaculture and ecotourism per se. Now, over 3 billion people globally rely on seafood as a primary protein source. And we understand, and like a lot of us, the researchers, the scientific community, and of course, a lot of other people, they understand that shipping noise does create a pollution. Theoretically, we have defined that shipping noise is disrupting the marine habitats and it is reducing fish stocks. Although we can talk about it, like again, something that we realized after interacting with the coastal community is that the coastal community is the first responder that gets affected or impacted by any of this. And yet, in terms of knowledge, in terms of understanding, the coastal communities do not have enough understanding of what's happening. How does the shipping noise affect their fish stock? How does the cycle of how does the weather affect the fish stock? What are the different aspects that disrupt the marine habitat? All of these things are still again because again there is no information. They do not have an app in their hand which basically tells them that there is a huge amount of shipping that is happening in the region that's creating a lot of noise up to so much amount of decibels that might impact. So there is no predictive analysis that's happening around there. Seaweed and shrimp farming. Now we know that aquaculture has grown rapidly, and this is one of the primary, again, one of in India and Indonesia, most likely the shrimp farms uh, have often suffered from disease outbreaks due to poor water quality monitoring and so on. Now there are there are IoT-based tracking that can be performed where farmers can adjust the water conditions and prevent losses. But again, that's the digital transformation aspect. Having an IoT based tracking system, having a tool that can tell the farmers that if your condition for growth is so much amount of temperature, this is the oxygen threshold that you have, this is the predicted amount of shrimp and seaweed growth that we are predicting. You need to reduce reduce the environmental, sorry, the water conditions by so on and so forth. Um, there are definitely different challenges around here. Climate change is causing ocean acidification, coral bleaching, and rising sea temperatures are affecting the aquaculture yields. And we still have lack of data on these environmental factors. So, what is the water quality? What is the habitat health? And all of this makes it difficult for the fishermen and aquaculture farmers to adapt, and optimize the yields that they try. The third point, rising maritime threats, environmental challenges, all of this again, this is not a new topic. The maritime threats and environmental challenges has been something that has been going on for quite some time now. Now, illegal fishing, smuggling, unauthorized vessel movements, all of them remain to be a challenge, be it any kind of terrorism attack or anything. Dark ships, the whole term dark ships has been coined from that perspective, that if you cannot track the movement, because it's a vast, like open sea is a vast area, there is definitely not a possibility for any kind of coastal coast guards or any other such kind of military force to actually keep an eye on everyone. So we need technologies that can understand. So we need technologies that can track the movement of ships. We have done some work in NDT before, where we basically use historical data of vessels to identify what is the path that a vessel should ideally take versus the path that it is taking currently. Again, none of these tools, none of these technologies that I'm talking about are accurate. But then again, we are not aiming for accuracy. We are aiming for some inputs, generating some data that would give us a bit of a boost in terms of our initiative. So yes, so these periodic inspections and delayed reporting, all of them, the current system that we have takes more of a reactive approach than a proactive approach. After something happens, we try to analyze and we try to perform some operation. Again, we are doing to the best of our capabilities, but with the technology changing, it's time for us to adapt. There's definitely a lot of environmental challenges that are going around: plastic pollution, oil spills, extreme weather events that are happening. So to tackle all of this thing is why we need real-time monitoring. So when we talk about real-time monitoring, like we can, as I said, we can use historical data to identify what is the route that ships need to take. We already have satellite that basically prints us the picture of what are the ships in the region. We have AIS data, of course, like some of the vessels can disable their AIS transponders, but then collaborating that with the satellite data, which showcases the images of the ships. So those kind of approaches, those kind of technologies are what we're aiming towards when we say digital transformation. And the other aspect essentially is also that when we are talking about any kind of planning or marine spatial planning, again, I'll present that in forward. One of the key approaches that we are trying to take here is that just like a traditional MSP tool will essentially showcase what is the shipping, what is the density of shipping in the region, where are the regions where ports are present, and so on and so forth. However, the actual decision does not come from just that part. The actual decision comes from what is the noise being generated from the shipping, what is the habitat in the region, what habitat is getting impacted, what kind of wind noise is there in the region, where are the oil rigs placed, and so on and so forth. Like where are the ports present in the region and how much noise is there around the port. So what the point I'm trying to make is that the digital transformation initiative is not just around collecting the data, but actually analyzing the data to provide meaningful inputs out of them, rather than just collecting them and showcasing them in a single source, which doesn't really provide like actionable insights. Um, I won't talk too much about the shrimp and seaweed. I think my able colleague Shlok, who has worked on this, is more empowered to work on it. But as I said, just like fishing and any other such kind of this thing, shrimp and seaweed farming is also one of the major sources of income for coastal communities. And that basically means that we need tools that can empower these communities to make informed and data-driven decisions. Now, talking about the tools, again, this is a tool that my able colleague Shlok had created. So I'll let him explain that in the detail, but in relevance to this presentation, so this is one of the digital transformation tool, again, a digital tool that I can talk about where a coastal company, so this is something that we created for coastal farmers where they can basically input their parameters, the temperature, stocking density, salinity, the pH of water, dissolved oxygen level, and so on. And then we have an AI algorithm which basically performs a predictive analysis that how much growth, how much survival percentage is there, what will be the biomass, what will be the final weight of the overall growth. So we'll basically perform a prediction of all of that and we'll give that to the farmers. And we'll also give a recommender analysis which showcases that your temperature level is extremely high or the pH of the water is extremely high, which needs to be reduced, and so on and so forth. So this has been an initiative that we carried on. This app is ready, this tool is ready. The second phase of this work is ongoing, where even this aspect of temperature, stocking density, and all of this, we are deploying IoT devices. We are deploying sensors that can capture all of these from artificial ponds, and then that can be then fed to our AI system, AI-based model that will then evolve and make better predictions in the future. So this is one of the initiatives for digital transformation. Um, the second aspect, again, marine life conservation is an important aspect. Increased shipping, more underwater noise. Noise disrupts the marine species. We know that marine species use uh, sound is the only form of communication for marine species. They cannot see underwater. So when we make a huge amount of noise, that basically means that these species they can't use their echolocation anymore, and therefore they cannot find prey. They cannot find food. So the whole habitat gets disrupted. And I mean, G.V. Frisk in his work has earlier predicted that after at every decade or so, there is a difference. There is a difference of around 10 decibel or 20 decibel in the noise level that happens underwater, and that is a huge amount of difference when we talk about decibels. So how are we going to tackle this kind of a problem is something that again we need to work on. The second important thing is the monitoring of ship noise is not a new concept. This has been something that has been started from the Cold War period. Back then, an acoustician called as Donald Ross is the person who actually started this during the Cold War period. They installed hydrophones. Now that is what we today call as a SOSU system. They deployed hydrophones and they basically recorded the noise. They basically identified that the hydrophones were supposed to identify the sounds of submarines that are passing through that sensor network. The acoustician Donald Ross further, then he went ahead and he basically analyzed that data, analyzed that that noise level, and he basically created a linear equation that fits into that recording and said that a ship having so much length and so much speed will create so much amount of noise. So let's just call it A express by equals to C kind of an equation. Now the problem is, and for a long period of time we have been using that model. Of course there have been multiple adaptations on top of that model, but that has been the base study, that has been the base model for the longest period of time. The problem, however, is with today in 2025, the ships are very different from what the ships were in Cold War period. That means the length of the ship, how much gross tonnage that ship weighs, what is the speed with which that ship moves, the material that is used in the ship. A lot of those things have changed. So therefore, that equation that we are using to calculate the ship noise is no longer valid. So what I'm trying to say is that there cannot be one solution that basically that applies across a lot of different period of time. So that is where again AI comes into picture. We need an artificial intelligence system that can understand the changes in the environment and accordingly predict and accordingly perform estimations. And that is what again this tool that we have created for is for. Now again, this is one of our more prouder achievements here. Again, it took us some time, but the tool that we have developed here, this is in a beta phase right now, is a shipping related noise estimation tool. The idea here is that to make it reachable for the community to be able to understand what is the noise that is coming out of a ship. So those yellow dots that you can see there is basically are basically ships in the region, shipping density in the region. So we are providing two options of obtaining the cumulative noise, where they can select the date range to and from, and it will basically showcase what is the cumulative noise in the region across that date. And of course, the user can select the frequency in which they want the noise in, and so on and so forth. And if you hover upon, like in the right hand side, as you can see, if you hover on a particular dot, it will showcase you which ship is that, what is the speed with which it is moving, and so on. Of course, we are making multiple improvements to make it look more appealing. But from a feature perspective, this is something that we have developed. The other part of the same tool, and this was the more challenging part. Again, AI comes into picture, is the instantaneous noise map. So what I spoke about estimating the noise of the ship and the channel model that is used for estimating the transmission loss between the source and the receiver. Uh, so we need to appreciate that this is a linear equation, which means that if you do it for one ship and one receiver, it will take, if say 1 second. For thousands of ships or 10,000s of ships, it's going to take 10,000 seconds. And we cannot wait for that long to obtain instantaneous data or instantaneous noise level in a region. Again, that is where we use artificial intelligence. So we basically published a paper of using neural network for estimation of transmission loss. So when a sound originates from point A to point B, the neural network, instead of estimating the transmission loss, it will predict the transmission loss, and it is much more faster than we performing the computation using a linear equation. And that has given us the edge that allowed us to create this tool where a user can basically select the depth, drag a region for which they want the noise level, and it will, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen, it will print the noise level for that region. Of course, we provide multiple other inputs as well, where you also showcase the bathymetry, what is the depth level of the water where that kind of a noise is there. And of course, you can also add the AIS layer on top of it to see what are the ships that are contributing to that kind of a noise, and so on. But again, AI or digital tools or the so-called advanced technologies is what have enabled us to obtain such kind of an instantaneous noise map. And this is important because it allows us to gather information in real time. It allows us to understand what kind of activity is happening in real time, rather than, as I said, a continuous source of data, rather than having an intermittent source of data. Of course, both of them are important, but more from a monitoring perspective, this is something that we have developed. Um, Again, the marine spatial planning tool, just to give a sneak peek, this is a broader thing that we are approaching towards, which is like one tool where everything is provided, right from marine environment management to climate risk management to resource mapping, understanding where are shrimps, where are what is the location for shrimps, what is the location for uh, 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 anyway, what is the location for shrimps and seaweeds? What is the location for any kind of oil rigs and ports and everything like that? All of that gets added into this thing. And therefore, one place where the policymakers or any kind of stakeholders, including the coastal community, can understand the relevance of everything together. So as I end my presentation, the future of digital transformation, we need to have an expansion of AI-driven monitoring systems. We need to have an integration of cloud-based UDA platforms. We need to have a government and industry adoption of sustainable policies, and we need to have community-driven data collection. Now, this is an important part where I want to also spend 2 more minutes. Where now, again, as I mentioned, that one thing that we have realized is that community is the first responder for any kind of activity that happens. They are the ones who experience the impacts of environmental changes first, be it declining fish stock, be it coral bleaching, be it increase in pollution. They are the ones that get impacted. And therefore, it is important that we engage the local communities in the data collection and reporting process. And that will allow us to expand the scale of ocean monitoring. And while it will also ensure that the conservation efforts that we are having is aligning with the requirement of the local community. And again, empowering them is will be this thing. There is, in fact, an e-oceans initiative that has been created that basically allows the diverse fishermen and local communities to report ocean changes using a mobile app. And that is, again, I found that to be a really interesting tool that has been developed. So yes, we are moving in that direction. We are moving in the right direction, but we need to increase the pace, and we need to have more resources allocated to this kind of a work. At the end of it all, what we are aiming for is that coastal communities should have real-time insights to protect their livelihoods. Marine life conservation should be enhanced through AI-driven monitoring and regulations. Maritime security needs to be strengthened using autonomous surveillance and predictive analytics, and a global cloud-based UDA system where a seamless integration of data and decision making happens, where you have one platform where all the information is present and nothing is in silos as such. With that, I hope I did not exceed my time in my presentation. Thank you.